Mother of all, mother of blood, hear my words and stand over us.
Moroza watched High Daughter Chana dip her hands in the basin, and she ran her fingers along the ridges of the gong. Pleasant ringing filled the heart chamber as the priestess rubbed fragrant lifeblood oil across her throat. Hands high before the altar, the old woman repeated the supplication. Moroza's eyes went to the statue of the mother, just as the flame flickered to life from her outstretched hand. High Daughter Chana sighed.
Her mercy is with us. Come, daughter. The hour is late. We must to bed.
Moroza helped the old woman to her feet. Would you like me to? Across the chamber, the door burst open. Stumbling into the room, a dwarven man struggled under the burden of a limp body.
Help!
Moroza stepped forward under the force of deep routine.
Please bring them forward to the stone.
The dwarf grunted in response, and Moroza helped him drag the wounded figure forward. An elf man, his silvery hair was streaked with blood and clung to a shredded leather vest. As she draped the elf's arm over her shoulder, a foul, acrid odor filled her nose, and she fought down the urge to gag. Moroza strained to pull the elf up onto the slab. His belt caught at the edge of the altar, and she had to pull it free before the dwarf could push him up. It came away in her hand, and she saw why it had caught. It wasn't a belt at all. It was a brace of throwing daggers, sleek, dark in their sheaths, and many missing. Rosa's eyes went to the dwarf. A sword hung at his hip, and chainmail was visible under his cloak.
Cutters, High Daughter.
Their companion delivered. The dwarf crumpled to the ground, panting like a spent race dog.
Name?
Moroza began checking the elf for signs of life.
I'm Czar. She means his name, child.
High Daughter Chana gently placed a hand on the elf's forehead. Oh, Minarian. His name's Minarian. The High Daughter placed a hand, still slick with blood-red oil, on Minarian and hummed. Rosa looked down at the wounds, deep gouges in the elf's chest. She had always been fascinated with the High Daughter's healing magic, but the bloody slashes didn't evaporate away.
That smell, these wounds...
Creases crept across Chana's brow.
I can pay whatever fee you require.
No, there's something wrong. Something deep inside Moroza's stomach dropped, and the elf's body twitched.
What made these wounds, Czar?
The dwarf rose to his feet to watch. We were in the tunnels under the old castle. Found a doorway in a flooded section. Something in the water. Some kind of froglin, but big, mean. Slashed him and got away.
A frog with claws? Odd. Very odd indeed. Czar, please fetch the marshal. At this time of night, the Pig's Ear Tavern is your best bet. You know it?
I think I passed it on the way in.
Good. Marshal Tukad, she may be able to help us identify this ailment. Hurry, please.
Czar rushed out into the night, leaving the two women alone with the dying elf.
Assist me, child.
The High Daughter held out her hands over the elf's body, and Moroza clasped them in her own. The old woman's palms were cold and thin in Moroza's grip as they began to pray. Time passed as the woman prayed. Minarian's wounds slowly began to close, but the smell lingered, and the elf did not wake. His skin was turning burgundy red, becoming clammy. Moroza put a hand on him and felt something sharp deep in her chest. There's something wrong inside.
We must pray. Pray harder.
The High Daughter held out her hands.
The Mother above can save him if we work.
The door slammed open. Get back from him. The Marshal ducked her head under the doorframe as she entered. As she advanced on the two women, candlelight glinted off her coppery scales and a drawn sword.
The High Daughter stopped her chanting and put herself in the half-dragon's path. Trembling, Rosa followed. Marshal Tukad, we asked you here for your advice, not your sword. What's the meaning? There is no time for advice. The marshal's arm swept the two holy women aside like they were children. The sword arm came up. No! Hundreds of ribbons of bright red light danced across the marshal's body and cinched tight, holding her in place. The half-dragon strove to speak, but only muffled grunts escaped her snout. The sword, child. Blood seeped from ancient wounds on the High Daughter's hands as she channeled the spell. Morova swallowed hard and grabbed for the marshal's sword. The half-dragon snarled under her muzzle, and her grip was like stone. A ribbon of light snapped as her muscles flexed. Behind her, Morova could hear the elf stirring and moaning. He was waking up. Morova opened herself to the Mother above and pulled with all her might, worldly and divine. The sword wrenched free in her hands, and she hurled it across the temple. Good child, now take our ward to the sanctuary. Lock the door, and I will follow. Rosa never had the chance to obey. The marshal roared, and divine ribbons holding her snapped apart like spring grass. Her tail lashed out and sent the High Daughter sprawling before she could renew the ward. The half-dragon marshal raised a trunk of an arm to strike Moroza, but froze, this time in fear. Moroza followed the marshal's terrified gaze to the pedestal where the elf, an Aryan, stood. But the elf was not the elf. A hulking creature, toad-like, blood red, stepped down from the stone. An acrid odor rushed out from the widening mouth of needle teeth. The creature fixed Moroza with enormous, inky black eyes. A massive hand with wicked, bony hooks raised high in the air, hesitating for only a moment. The monster smiled. Thanks.